Our next speaker, Jack Kantola, has traveled extensively throughout the country and the world. He has visited over 60 countries where he captured his memories with his camera. Today, he is fulfilling an assignment from level 3 of Pathways. His challenge is to create effective visual aids. Speaking for 6 to 8 minutes, the title of his speech is Myanmar Memories. Please help me welcome Jack Kantola.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. When I travel, I'm always left with a few significant impressions or memories of the places I visit. Myanmar, or used to be called Burma, is no exception. Today I want to share with you some memories I brought back from my visit to Myanmar. One of the big things that impacted me was pagodas. Pagodas by the dozens. They're all over the place. Burmese pagodas are really something called stupas. They're dome-shaped buildings that house Buddhist relics. Relics like body parts of the original Buddha. Burma at one time had an estimated 13,000 pagodas. There's just over 2,000 remaining today. And while most of them are located in Bagan in central Myanmar, they can be found throughout the country. What happened was people would find themselves in a bad position with their religion, and so they would build a pagoda to buy themselves out of the sinful situation. Cool, huh? This picture right here has about 20 pagodas in that view. Many of the pagodas are pretty plain-looking structures, but a few are clad in gold and amazing, like the Shui Dagan Pagoda in Yangon, in the southern city of Yangon. The dome of this pagoda contains a mere 40 tons of gold. It is said that this pagoda contains 6 to 8 hairs from the original Buddha. Another, it's a religious place, and it's on a big setting. So if you want to go exploring in there, first thing you have to do is take your shoes off. And then you go wandering around and enjoying all the variety of sights that are available within the pagoda itself. Another beautiful pagoda is the Ananda Pagoda in Bagan. It has a mere 30 tons of gold in the dome. One way of paying homage to Buddha is to buy very thin gold sheet, gold leaf, and then apply it to the gold that's already there. So the gold keeps increasing, the gold content keeps increasing. The second thing that impressed me was the number of Buddha statues by the zillions. 90% of Myanmar, people in Myanmar are Buddhist. The Buddhism practiced in Myanmar is Theravada Buddhism, which is the purest form of Buddhism. Theravada Buddhists view Buddha as a teacher. The other major form of Buddhism is the Mahayana Buddhists, which is practiced in China and Japan, and their belief is that Buddha was a savior. There are thousands of Buddha statues in Myanmar. The Buddha statues celebrate Buddha and come in all sizes and all shapes. There are sitting Buddhas, there are laying down Buddhas, there are standing up Buddhas, and there are really, really, really huge Buddhas. This one is almost 200 feet long. If you see my wife Mary is standing there, you get a sense of the perspective of the size of the Buddha. It's incredible. And then of course you have some fairly plain Buddhas, but there are Buddhas everywhere. Another element of this whole scene is Buddhist monks. Buddhist monks everywhere. In Myanmar, everyone is encouraged to become a monk for at least 4 weeks, sometime during their life. This, of course, requires that you cut your hair off. And then you wear the saffron robe. This is a photo of young monks returning from collecting alms. A third of the monks in the monastery collect alms every day to provide food for the whole population in the monastery. They eat 2 meals, 1 breakfast and then 1 dinner. And it's all provided. It's kind of a symbiotic relationship between the monastery and the people in the neighborhood, because the people in the neighborhood gain favor with Buddha by providing alms. And so it works. It's a system that works. There are seasoned monks. I think that one sitting down is probably a relative of Jim Scribner. But they're very common, and they're very approachable and very friendly. We had a great time talking to some of these people. There are young monks. Children as young as 4 years old can enter the monastery. Sometimes families with 8 to 10 children will offer one of them to the monastery. Now this to some of the people in our group sounded very cruel. But when you thought about it, that young person that went into the monastery had food, they had shelter, and they got an education. Something they probably wouldn't have had if they had stayed in their home village. So it's not a bad thing. But the other thing is that at the age of 20, if you went in to be a monk at an early age, at the age of 20 you had to make a decision. Whether you wanted to make monkism your lifetime profession, or whether you wanted to leave the monastery and pursue some other pursuits. So there was an opportunity for them to leave and go other ways. Oh, and ladies, you wouldn't not be exempt from becoming a nun. Of course, your hair would have to go as well. The other thing that's there is people and places. While Buddhism seems to dominate the scene in Myanmar, it also offers an interesting blend of people and places. You may encounter people from villages far from the big cities, like these Karen ladies that we met who traveled to Yangon to visit the Shwedagon Pagoda. The Karen villages are in the southeast of Myanmar. But more likely you would meet ordinary folks doing ordinary things, like these street vendors in Yangon. Now you may wonder what that stuff is on their faces. It's called thanaka. It's made from a bark that the ladies rub on a rock with a little water and the bark from the tree, and they rub it on the water and create this paste. And that paste is used as a sunscreen. So that's a very common thing for them to have. We interacted with many locals as well, learning about their lives. Everyone we met seemed very happy, even in all of their circumstances. Young families are pretty much the same around the world. Interestingly, we chatted with a farm family we saw working in the field and learned that we were the first Westerners they had ever met. Dad kept plowing while we visited with Mom and the daughters. A part of local life is doing the wash, whatever way you can, even in the Irrawaddy River. Now, of course, there are other wonderful things to see, like the UBN Bridge, which has been around for 200 years and is still serving its purpose. And I'd love to be able to share with you more about Myanmar, which includes the Irrawaddy River in Kipling's Road to Mandalay. But unfortunately, after all this visiting, I'm worn out, and that's going to have to wait for another speech. Madam Toastmaster.